now like to introduce Dr. Cecilia Menjivar, who is Professor of Sociology at UCLA. Her work focuses on the effects of immigration laws on immigrants and their families. She works on issues of gender-based violence in Central America. She is a co-author on the award-winning 2018 Best Paper of DWC's journal, Feminist Criminology. Her presentation today will address asylum protections for Central immigrant women.
Thank you, Shital, and good morning, everybody. The policy recommendations I'm making today are based on my extensive research in Central America, as well as on Central American immigrant communities in the United States. I focus on three specific points related to Central American women fleeing gender-based violence and seeking protection in the United States today. I will first summarize the research upon which I make these recommendations, but I strongly urge you to watch for emerging opportunities to respond to this issue, to the issues I highlight today, because they also happen to be hot topics and very much at the center of immigration policy and border enforcement today. I have brought some of my work, it's on the table outside, as well as other evidence-based research so that you can keep informed and keep track of this issue. Women around the globe are often forced to migrate to escape gender-based violence, which comes in different forms. However, regardless of the specific manifestations of this violence, unresponsive governments, ineffective justice systems, and weak institutions play a key role in creating conditions for women experiencing different forms of violence in their lives and who have no other option than to flee. Recently, the case of Central American women, mostly from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, fleeing violence in their countries, has been front and center in news and in public officials' debates about and proposals for immigration enforcement and our asylum system. In June of this year, as part of the current administration's broader strategy to reduce immigration, the Attorney General issued the decision Matter of AB, which effectively undermines decades of asylum law recognizing domestic violence and gang violence as possible basis for asylum. The Attorney General's decision has at least two immediate harmful consequences for the lives of women seeking protection. For women already in the asylum procedures, and for those who seek to apply for asylum. First, this change in policy effectively prevents many women who are in the asylum process from receiving protection based on these two forms of violence, which have propelled thousands of Central American women to flee their countries. Second, it prevents women from even having a chance to apply for asylum because these new standards are applied for screening cases in what are called credible fear interviews. The new standards then deny women the opportunity to even start asylum proceedings, which result in their swift removal back to the life-threatening conditions they fled to begin with. As I demonstrate in my research on gender-based violence in Central America, and other scholars have done so as well, these women escape from contexts where multiple forms of violence coalesce in their lives, exacerbated by the lacking government responses to these women's plight. During my field work in the Central American region, women narrated stories of extreme precarity brought about by the structural violence of poverty and the economic system, amplified by symbolic violence of being mistreated, humiliated, and devalued because they are women, and compounded by gendered expectations of behavior rooted in gender violence. The women would couch their stories in a language that reflected their normalization and internalization of the multiple forms of violence in their lives, with words such as, "This is the way things are around here," or "I endure all this, what else can I do?" But their stories are only half the picture. The same violent structures and practices that have shaped their lives also seep through to shape how institutions and the justice systems respond to these women's plight and contorted government workers' interpretations of the laws that have been designed to address violence in the lives of women. Because all these countries do have laws in place to protect women from violence. They're just not effective. A conclusion of my research is that the confluence of multiple forms of state, institutional, everyday, and intimate violence paved the way for the ultimate form of violence against women, their deaths in the form of feminicide. This is what Central American women flee today and the reason why they seek protection in the United States. In addition to my research on women in Central America, I also have conducted extensive research on Central American migration and in Central American communities in the United States, with a special attention to women. My work among Central American immigrant women in the United States supports my research results from Central America. These immigrant women in the United States have shared stories about ineffective police, indifferent officers, and corrupt justice system workers open to bribes in their home countries. Based on my research on Central American immigrant communities in the United States, as well as my extensive work in Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras, where I have also researched the legal systems and the laws designed to protect women from violence, and my extensive pro bono work on cases of detained Central American women in the United States today, I propose the following policy points. First, to treat these women as asylum seekers and recognize their right to present their cases. I currently serve as an expert in litigation brought about by the Center for Gender and Refugee Studies at Hastings College of Law and the ACLU, challenging the unlawful application of the Attorney General's decision to turn asylum seekers away at the border. And I urge your offices to monitor other opportunities to support access to the asylum process after the decision of matter of AB. Second, to acknowledge domestic violence and gang violence as basis for protection. And three, to stop these women's detention in prison-like conditions, the abuses they suffer, and their treatment as a criminal population undistinguishable from common criminals. This treatment by U.S. enforcement agencies today often deters women from fully pursuing their right to protection, while adding another layer of suffering to women who escape violence and who have already experienced harrowing conditions in their home countries and on their journeys north. Thank you very much.